Hello hero, it's Lucy Lannon. Impromptu one today. As predicted in my last reading, I do have a bit of a sore throat, so apologies for that. Totally worth it. But essentially that means that I'm going to be uploading a couple of kind of collective shorter readings as opposed to my usual pick-a-pile jamborees, just for a little while I recover. And my first thought was to use my beloved Vertigo deck, which you may have seen a review of elsewhere on the channel, in order to do a bit of a spiritual check-in. When I say spiritual, there are a lot of people viewing this in the end, hopefully, and already from the people that I know there's quite a variety of backgrounds, disciplines, belief systems, etc. So wherever you are on the spectrum, from full-blown woo right through law of attraction and then over into complete atheism, I hope that there is something here for you. That includes various levels of religiosity on the way, and I will try to sort of adapt whatever information comes through for the kinds of people that I think will be viewing a tarot reading in general. What else do I want to say? Yeah, we're using the Vertigo Tarot. I may check in with a This Day I Am card just to sort of give you a magical activity or a mundane one that you can turn magical. And I may also use the Maxfield Parish playing cards for a bit of cartomancy if we need information on specific tools. But my aim here, very much on the fly, is to kind of see where you've been, what you've been working on, what the big transformative tilt of the seesaw is going to be next, and where it might lead you, right? So that's the structure of the reading. Excuse me if you heard that. I'm getting very hiccupy already, which means I'm on the right track, even if it sounds Lovecraftian and disgusting. Okay, so let's first go with... Ooh, all right. These are eager. Let's first go with what you've been looking at on the inner and the outer in terms of your general life. This can be a spiritual life, but it can also just be like the sorts of things you've been focusing on. Sorry about the positioning of cards, slightly new setup. Hopefully that will give me a good guideline, and we'll move this guy out of the way and we'll tilt you just a little bit over here to where you're meant to be. Fantastic. All right. You've been feeling something which I find quite familiar, if thankfully in the past for me. Whatever kind of spiritual practitioner you are, and I say practitioner even if your work doesn't necessarily affect anybody else but you, because if you have beliefs and you're acting on them, you're in practice, right? But whatever kind of background you come from in that sense, there is evidence here on the inner, and I'm hearing it like the Expanse, like in Yoloda, right? Like filthy inners. There's a sense that the results coming in your financial and material life are leaving you feeling defensive about your spiritual practice in some fashion. Now, I don't know whether that's because you've cast directly for money and it's not something that's manifested into your world yet, or whether it's just that as a result of the pursuit of spirituality, much like I was at one point, you've kind of shunned a lot of the ways of being that people around you have focused upon in order to hone in on a different set of values. That doesn't mean that everybody else's values aren't right. It doesn't mean that yours are superior, and I want to be very careful about that because we've got a couple of superiority cards in here just to give me instruction to check myself before I wreck myself. But certainly your focus has not been where everybody else's focus is. Your beliefs are coming from a slightly different place. And I think you thought that that would mean that your life would look different by now. That's not the case, right? I know the King of Pentacles is not in reverse, but it's with this Seven of Wands. So there is a defensive feeling. And these two moved closer to each other as I moved them around. So they are interlinked. Again, I'm hearing interlinked in the sense of Blade Runner 2049. I feel like we have some sci-fi fans in here. Let me know in the comments if that's you, right? Because we've had Expanse and Blade Runner now. I should have used my sci-fi deck for this anyway. With the chariot, it's facing into the other cards, right? This is the inner world anyway, but you've still got something looking back. The horse is facing your internal monologue about this. So there isn't swift movement, there isn't momentum coming. There may even be a feeling that the only thing that you can control is your inner thoughts and experiences, maybe your self-concept, and that is getting to grate on you now. Because you would like, for all your practice, to be able to influence things on the outer a little bit more, what you feel is effectively. I remember reading a book a bit back, and I'm not going to share which because it's quite a contentious volume, but there was a sort of introductory chapter which had a quiz about how skilled you might already be in the things that the book covers. And to put it mildly, I was so devastated by my quiz results that I put the book back on the shelf for a few years. And it was only kind of in returning to it from a different angle and rereading that first bit that I realised I wasn't actually so bad. I wasn't so much worse off than the person that was being described as the ideal practitioner in that particular department. It was more that my focus had been on different aspects of those skills. And I share this with you without being too specific because I think there is a certain set of things that you fully expected to happen, whether that's through the influence of your peers demonstrating that they could, or indeed the influence of various fantasy and occult movies and whatever else is in your kind of sphere, where you just thought that this would look cooler by now. You just kind of thought that, I don't want to be frivolous with this, but I think you thought that if you said the magic words, or if you made the right talisman, or even if you prayed in the right way, or whatever it is for you, there would be a more demonstrative effect, or a more immediate effect. And perhaps for some of you, this is on behalf of another person as well. So some of you are teachers, some of you are healers, and you're saying, if I was a real fill in the blank, I would be able to sort out this problem with this person overnight, or I would be able to lead this person down the correct path, or I would be able to even advise them a little bit more accurately within my discipline. There's a feeling here that your kind of shadow work, whether or not you're conscious of doing it, has been about lagging behind in some way. And there's almost like a wondering whether this is you resisting progress at some kind of subconscious level, or whether it's that you're not meant to go forward within that particular field, or just that there's kind of the fates are against you, right? If you believe in anything akin to the fates. And I don't want to be too deterministic when I say this, but I kind of do, in a way that it's a dance, it's an exchange, it's offerings given, certain things received, but we're still allowed to choose which timeline we're in at the end of the day, and we're still in full control of our decisions and faculties. Please excuse the throat, it's getting a lot worse. That makes me think, for personal reasons, that this is a confirmation that you wished you could have helped someone out in a more precise fashion, right? I'm also seeing my own reflection in my golden obsidian. Golden obsidian is about shadow work. All obsidian is, but particularly this one for me was my shadow stone. And because I'm looking at my reflection and I'm feeling a little bit self-conscious because I'm a bit ill today and I don't look great, I think that you're not happy with the reflection you're seeing in the mirror. And I don't think that's from lack of study, practice, devotion, belief, even faith, if that's not a risky term for you. I think you've done all the right things and you're almost getting a little bit pissy about the results now. Sorry, I'm laughing with you, not at you, because I've so been here. I really have. And I'm pleased to tell you that I shifted out of it almost as soon as I recognised that I was in it and that I wasn't being very grateful. And it was almost like, I don't want to say that I needed to forgive circumstance or give gratitude or any of those boring horseshit things that we don't like doing. They're all good for us in the same way that, sprouts are good for you, but we don't like eating them, right? So I'm not going to say that I did the work in that sense and I shuttled off out of it, I was shunted back into a decent reality. What I will say was that the key for me was actually distraction from the core issue. It was recognition, and then it was, right, I'm just going to shift my focus away from magic entirely for a bit and hope that things pan out. And actually in doing that, I got my enthusiasm back for it, and overnight I got the results that I'd been working towards for, at that point, probably about 7 years, 8 years, something like that. So, very, again, interlinked, we're going to look at your outer circumstances. We've got the Devil, the Eight of Swords, and the Ten of Pentacles. I should have said that these before were the Seven of Wands, the King of Pentacles, and the Chariot. I don't know whether I did. Little discombobulated, little. So, again, there's temptation here to sort of, you are feeling trapped, you're feeling bound by your own mental state regarding this. But I think the temptation is to either pack it in all together for a bit with this kind of, it doesn't work, which I'm putting in very inverted commas because I'm running a tarot channel. So my dude, if you don't believe in this, we're going to disagree. I love you, but that's not where I'm at right now. And I understand why it might be where you are teetering, but hear me out, okay? There is the temptation to pack it in. There's also the temptation to fuck it off, to go down a path that would be, I don't want to say karmic, because that's not a term that I like reappropriating in the way that it's used, but it would certainly be messy behaviour, right? Devilish. This card in particular is from the Sandman volume where the devil goes on his holidays because of everything that's happened in hell. He just kind of gives up a bit, right? And there is that feeling with you that, like, well, you know what? If I'm putting all this dedication in and I'm not getting the whiz-bang impressive stuff, or I'm not getting the results that I first desired, maybe I should just indulge in a lot of casual sex. Maybe I should just use my psychoactive substances for purposes that aren't entirely spiritual. Maybe I should just go off on holiday and not make it a retreat and just get bladdered on a beach, etc., etc. Fill in as you see fit. It won't be as extreme as those things for all of you, because some of you are very devoted and chaste and behave a lot better than I do a lot of the time, and I applaud you for that, right? But there is a reactionary feeling, and this is in your outer, because this is possibly behaviour that you're either meeting now or you have met recently as a direct result of this inner frustration, which, as I say, may or may not have been conscious. You're feeling trapped, but you're also feeling, I get the sense with this particular Eight of Swords, it's a little bit like Pass the Parcel, the way that the swords are being wrapped up. And I'm sure from a fantastic guidebook that there is a deeper meaning to that, which I can't remember at the moment. But what it's suggesting to me is that if this Eight is a game of Pass the Parcel, you are almost passing yourself around different teachers, different mentors, different books, different churches, different organisations of some kind, just different feedback, maybe even different tarot readers, right? In order to kind of go, well, I put myself in your hands now. Are you the one with the answer? Are you the one with the answer? Makes me think of that book. What was it now? But there's a childhood book that many of us had, if you're sort of around my age, sort of late 30s. And the kind of catchphrase from the main character was, "Are you my mummy?" Right? And it was going around like, "Are you my parent? Are you my parent? Are you, are you, are you?" And that was the structure of the narrative. And it's like, when you're not doing your... I'm hearing like downing Jaeger and having a ball, but, when you're not doing whatever this reckless behaviour is, you're possibly passing yourself around different systems, different teachers, different subreddits, different forums, different magical lodges, you name it, you do you, and saying, "Are you the one who can solve my problem?" You know what I'm going to say, and you're going to hate me for it. I'm so sorry. Your problem, my friend, is you. And no specific teacher or order or new line of mentoring or new sphere of activity is going to entirely solve it if you don't consent to a little bit of a deep dive into how you got here and why it is that you're so frustrated and what exactly you expected the results to be. With this Ten of Pentacles, there is a great potential for material abundance, within a spiritual sphere. So many of you are practitioners that have set up shops, healing services, divinatory services. Hi, let me know who you are down below. I'd love to follow you on whatever. But there's certainly, like, even if it's only that you're doing magic for money, right? There's potential there for that to happen. And when we're talking about abundance, obviously it is broader than money. So some of you, there is potential to bring in that twin flame or soulmate or whatever it is. There is potential to move to that country you've wanted to live in, etc., etc. Again, general reading, it will resonate differently for different people. The problem here is that I don't think you're willing to admit to yourself, and certainly not to others, what it is that you expected this would look like by now, what it is that you expected it to be. There is a kind of Pinterest-friendly witch or monk or, you know, devotee in some other fashion. This person that you expected to become from years and years of this, and I do think it's years for many of you, right? I don't think it's a fly-by-night thing, although take it as you need it. And I think that oh, I love you, but that figure is enough of a cliche that actually to say it out loud what you expected to have or do or be would be embarrassing, right? It's very, the images I'm getting in my head, excuse me, getting in my head are either super Instagrammable witch stuff, you know, light worker, and very sort of aesthetically pleasing, etc., which none of us really are behind closed doors, hence the mirror thing. Or at the other end of the spectrum, it's like really kind of samsara-ish, what's that series? It's like Avatar, The Last Airbender type stuff, where you're expecting to do these really powerful, amazing hermetic feats, and it's just not happening for you, even though everything else within the course or within your sort of spiritual development is going hunky-dory, right? It's not that you're behind, is what I want to say. It's that your expectation of where you might be by this point is just off. And it's off in a way that almost feels embarrassing to admit to, because you would have to tell your mates on some level that you might have thought that sparks were going to fly out of your fingertips, or you might have expected that this person who hasn't been able to commit to you in 10 to 20 years would overnight propose, or something like that, right? I'm not shaming you when I give those examples. Again, I'm a person who has expected and occasionally received very big results from my spiritual practice. But part of the thing that I want to emphasize to you is that the culture around magic makes it seem results oriented. It is not. Yes, we cause change in the world using our will, using our intuition, using our connection to spirit, etc. But this isn't the be-all and end-all of the discipline. And even if you come from a tradition like I do, where there are pillars, where there are people who exchange their gifts for money, link down below if you want to exchange mine. But even if you're from those kinds of backgrounds where it is a transactional thing, right? You pay a guy to do the deal that you don't have the capacity to do or whatever. You pay the healer, or you know. It's still not that is the focus of the thing. And I dare say that within a community, that kind of shamanic figure who is the person that you pay, who in many cases may be you, their focus of their own inner life is not necessarily just that transaction. And there is a danger, particularly at the moment, particularly with very short form things, naming no names of any other platforms, that we sort of focus on the results-based rather than the experiential. And therefore we lose sight of our extremely impressive progress, because we can't put it in a format necessarily that impresses other people. And your job right now is not to repackage your entire spirituality so that it is user-friendly for people who, on a spiritual level, you may actually never interact with. That's not to do them down. It's not to do you down. It's just to say, are you a person on this path, or are you a brand? Right? And if you're not meeting brand criteria, it doesn't mean that you haven't formed contacts with other realms. It doesn't mean that you haven't brought about manifestations. It doesn't even mean that you're not dedicated to your gods or indeed to yourself. It just means that the framework within which you're operating is one that is suggestive of product, end result, and transaction. This is particularly true for those of you who have been dealing in relationship magic, for yourself or for other people. Because in the end, the focus of our relationships still, especially in things like twin flame dynamics, is actually a developmental one. It's not about getting the results in a certain way. This is a wonderful offshoot that does happen very regularly, and I can speak to that myself. But that's not the point, right? And I think you've hit upon this today. You've found me today. Hi, please subscribe. In order to get that that's not the point. Because you do know it, really. I don't need to tell you. This isn't me giving you a bollocking as if this is something you don't know. It's me saying, easy now. You had big expectations of yourself on very specific levels, but you're kind of missing all this other stuff that you've done and all these ways that you've been extremely beneficial to the people around you in doing so, right? Okay, let's get into what the big kind of catalyzing thing is going to be. And then we'll get into your near future with it all. So if we were to come out of this energy, if we were to, I'm being called to shuffle all over again. If we were to fuck this thing of like, I'm going to give in to my outer temptations and go from mentor to mentor because I'm not getting the exact results that they said I would get on TV, etc. And by the way, YouTube is still TV, guys, all right? It's still very heavily edited, bear that in mind, you know? But if we were to move out of that energy, what would be the thing spiritually, magically, religiously to do that for us? 3 cards. Thank you. That's way too many, but I'm drawn to the moon, so we're having it. Be more instinctive is the thing to come out of that, actually. You know, you're being systematic, I feel. It's very King of Pentacles thing, but actually, the way forward, as many of you already know, and I just need to remind you, is very often much more open, spirit-led, experiential. You might need to do some deep diving work. Those of you who have access to sensory deprivation in whatever form, that would be a good suggestion right now. Personally, I have a bathroom without windows, and I do like to put in earplugs and load of salt into the bath and just kind of float off as if I'm in a flotation tank without having to pay the money. But you do you. Again, that may not be very healthy for me, that amount of salt, especially after a stroke. Regardless, I digress. Yeah, oh, see, we've got Emperor reverse, so you need to let go, man. There is, I know you're going to hate me for saying that. Oh, I can't just let go. I've got so much invested in this. I'm not getting the magical results that I need. I don't even know if I'm on the right path. I'm in spiritual crisis. Yeah, fucking let go anyway, right? You're passing the parcel around different readings. You found me. I'm telling you, relax a bit. Sorry. We've got a card that's about intuition with a reinforced emphasis on the water signs with this crustacean over here, which tells me as well that some of you are exploring kind of chthonic or Lovecraftian waters, and maybe to do that a bit more for fun, and that will sort of shunt you back to the kind of mindset you were in, but it's just for some. But there is this watery, very seductive, attractive, semi-passive, drawing in kind of a vibe within an already intuitive card, which suggests cyclical stuff that is out of your control because it's moon. Then we've got 2 of Wands, which is simultaneously about being trapped and being sort of structured in what you do. The trap is the structure in this case, I would sort of say. And with these hands being blurred, it's like, yeah, you're putting out energy, you're reaching out to the outside world, but you're doing it with shaky hands, right? Your inner life is not yet reconciled with itself. So there is a limitation on how much uncorrupted, good groovy energy that you can really give right now. And I would even suggest put a hold on that, solve this problem first, if you're able, in terms of, you know, those of you who are business runners, etc. Ten of Cups reversed shows me you're frustrated with your familial life. Well, that frustration is actually a gift, right? Because it's in the portion of like, how do I shunt out of this? Well, my friend, you look at what it is that you actually wanted to fucking happen. What are the material blockages to that? What are the social blockages to that? Who is playing up and possibly why? Is there any insight that you can get on that as somebody who either divines for yourself or who has access to regular divination? Hello. I am your access point for those of you who don't do it yourself. But again, it's like with this examination of the idea of where it is that you saw yourself as being at, there also needs to be an examination of like, what did I expect from my love life, from my familial life, from my home setup, from my Ten of Cups by this point, and why is it that I feel I'm not there? And again, it comes back to this story I had about the book at the beginning, but what is the chasm that you would need to leap in order to be there? Take an honest look at it, because part of my block with that for so many years was that I couldn't actually face the realities within the distance between where I was and where I aspired to be to even start off along a particular tradition, right? I was just so butthurt that the quiz results didn't describe me that I couldn't then say, well, actually, there is a pretty methodical way to get to that, because I couldn't even see the bits that were missing between where I was and there, because I would have had to admit that at the time I was socially fucked and I was jobless and I was messing with my romantic sphere in such and such a way, and I had medical stuff going against me and whatever else, you know? So this is saying to me, take an honest look. I know it's not the traditional meaning, but in combination with all of this, the thing that's going to move you forward is a reassessment, an honest reassessment, without the need to then reorganise things around what conclusions you come to. So if there aren't sparks shooting out of your hands, why? What kind of a world do you live in? What are the realities that you've accepted about the world that limit you from the mental possibility that sparks will shoot out of your hands? I'm being serious with this. Seriously, like, what is it within your self-concept that says that these things are impossible to you or impossible for the moment? If you haven't been able to heal in quite as ineffective a way as you normally do, in whatever modality or whatever discipline, even if it's prayer, what is it about yourself that you're believing at the moment that would hold you back from that? If you were to think of your biggest critic, even if it's an imaginary person or a parent or like some unseen client that you haven't encountered yet or whatever, what is it that they would be bitching about you in regard to that prevents you from being here, from doing this, and from being this witchy or religious or devoted or otherwise highly spiritually ascended self that you think you're not right now? And I'm not saying that just as an exercise in self-concept where it's like, oh, we'll do some affirmations on that and sparks will be shooting out your fingers in no time. That's not what I'm getting at. You know it. What I'm getting at is that there needs to be a really honest appraisal of your expectations and your reality that is free of the frustration of your previous subconscious resistance to that reality, and instead can move you into a space where you don't have to organise everything and plan really meticulously and be in charge, right? Because it's an interesting Emperor card, because it's kind of the puppet and the puppeteer, right? It's how much do you control your surroundings? How much is fated? How much is you? What do you have control over? And it's all very about relinquishing of control when it's in this position and flipped. Sorry, just checking the camera. So it's like, you don't have to be in control of everything. You just have to step into a space where you're aware of what it is that feels out of control for you in a more precise way. And some of you, that's your only block. And you've just been so resistant to admitting that you're not all powerful, that it's almost like power can't come in for you. Does that make sense? I'm hoping it makes sense. I know I'm asking you rhetorical questions and you can't answer. I mean, you can in the comments, but I won't hear you right here, right now, because that's not what I'm tuned into. I don't think you're in a bad position, my dude. I think you're in a position where you've become frustrated with yourself in terms of your development, and you've allowed that to mirror itself to your frustrations in the outer world, whether they be financial, romantic, whatever they are. And that as a result of that, because you felt a lack of control, you've kind of given your power away to other people, other disciplines, other people who know better, right? Some of you, I'm even hearing it's not a magical thing, and it's like you're going through self-help or motivational channels on YouTube, just like looking for somebody to have the magic pill, right? For how you're feeling, but I don't think it's working. And I don't think it will work, because you have to take your power back into you. And you have to admit that one of the places that you have been very developmentally successful up to now is putting yourself in a position where you are aware that you hold the cards. Ironic when you're coming to another tarot reader, but that is what I'm getting. And I think that the process of doing this will help you to resist the behavioural temptations that you've fallen into. I know this is Major Arcana. I don't feel like he's a big deal. This is the least threatening of the devil cards that I own. And I've got a great deal of decks at this point. That's my temptation, right? Is buying curios. But of all of the devils, of all of the Lucifers to come up, you've got the one from Sandman, which is it's what started me off in a lot of this, in some ways. And it's also what feels the most harmless to me in terms of understanding that archetype. The sort of Miltonian Lucifer, I'm so familiar with from a very religious childhood that I almost don't have an issue if he crops up. I'm more scared of the shadow work Lucifer or the BDSM Lucifer or the kind of have I got a food addiction type Lucifer, right? This guy is nothing to me. And I want to tell you that because it's not as big a deal that you've been misbehaving as you're making out. This entire reading speaks to pressure on yourself. Magically, spiritually, emotionally, physically, financially. There is a lot on your shoulders and you have put it there. Not this guy. That's not a bollocking. Again, I love you. It's just that once you recognise that you've put these restrictions in place, you won't feel as out of control. And that's the next step. And perhaps this reading, hopefully, will encourage you in that direction. I also forgot to say at the beginning that Crow wanted to join us. I don't know whether you can see this, but it's a crow's foot that I carry and use for various things. Responsibly sourced, don't come at me, right? Crow energy is, obviously it's relevant to many traditions as a kind of trickster or trickster companion, especially if you're in the Northern Hemisphere. But more generally speaking, it's light-hearted and yet it's a harbinger of death. So you're getting rid of old stuff by laughing. You're banishing by laughter with Crow. Yes, there are many other intelligent things that corvids do, and I encourage you, if you are drawn to read about them, to do so, because they're a fascinating subset of birds, right? They're amazing creatures that can tell us a great deal of spiritual truths just in the way that they behave with each other. But what I want to say more accurately than that is that almost the way to get to the crux of this and make it less of a thing is to just laugh it off. It's to do your honest assessment, which won't be very funny at all. I dare say there will be no smiles for a few days if you really sort of take an honest look at this. But after that, take the piss out of yourself. Rope in a few other magicians or a prayer circle or whatever it is who are also willing to take the piss out of you at this point. And with this thing that you're a little ashamed to admit that you wanted to happen, maybe if you've got trustworthy people around you, and I know that's a big if for many people, but if you can, come out to them a bit about it, even just in a joke, and see whether they laugh back and see whether some of that takes the resistance off, that you're not this all-powerful magus, or you're not 20 years into tarot development when you've only been doing it 2, 3, 4, 5. Or you're not the most popular spiritual practitioner on TikTok if that's your aim, but actually you've come a long way in your own life, etc. Let's get into near future energy, shall we? This one already got left behind. That's interesting. You're leaving behind the heartbreak of this whole shebang. Fantastic. It's so literal. That's the thing as well, right? This has been a very literal, easy reading for me. There's not been a lot of decoding. There's not been a lot of time reading cards. I think you'd agree with me on that. Like, I've not had to pause or do much of anything for long. You're very proficient in the skills that you have been working on, whether that's spirit communication, whether that's healing others, whether it's just sort of, and again, they're coming out straightforwardly from the back, right? They never do that. What am I getting at? You're very good at this, right? You are meant to be on a spiritual path. You are guided in the correct way by the correct things. I don't think you have to have any worries about inviting anything in that's a bit sus, or dealing with negative people around you to the extent that you can't handle, or anything like that. In fact, it reminds me of a conversation I had with someone through a House of Leaves forum of all places, that ended up into a conversation about them being called to work with spirit, demon, all kinds of stuff. And I hesitate, this isn't entirely to do with the book, so do go ahead and read it. It's a great work of fiction. But they'd sort of embarked on this journey through various synchronicities to do with reading it, and found themselves almost up shit creek in terms of understanding what it was that they were meant to do. And something that came out of me in that conversation, where I went, oh yeah, it was a life-changing read for me as well. And I read it this time when I was vaguely blind and also in a labyrinth, all this kind of stuff. What came out of me that I didn't know was there was the universe doesn't really give you anything that you can't handle. The trick is to see the context of how to handle it in order to sort of have your head askance in a very crow-like way and reassess, and then you can go forward. Now, by that, I don't mean that there isn't suffering in the world. And I certainly don't mean that there aren't circumstances for everybody, myself included, the people around me included, that are unfair, that are weighty, that seem to be too much in the moment of dealing with them. And yes, I acknowledge the eventuality that some people have things that they can't deal with at all, and they visit another universe for a while, shall we say, right? I acknowledge that all of that happens, but what I mean with this really is that as somebody who's already consciously on a spiritual path, or you wouldn't have got this far into the reading, the things that are being given to you are things that are meant for you. And if that smarts a bit, it's because you're not looking close enough at what those things actually are, right? I say that as somebody who's experienced all manner of awful, awful physical experiences, hallucinations due to things that were not psychological in the slightest, that had spiritual, terrifying meanings, people dying in droves during a short space of time, etc., etc. There are many times actually that I've been to other people and therefore furthered my development, asking whether I've been cursed or whether I've received evil eye or whatever. And I say all this to say that it is legit when I look back on that and I say there was nothing given to me that I wasn't able to handle at some point. And that's not the same as saying everything happens for a reason, because fuck that, honestly. It's so annoying when you're in it. And I'm laughing so much in this reading because I'm feeling some of the frustration of the people listening to it, be that now or in the great beyond when this goes out into the future, right? But each of those things seemed incomprehensible at the time. Each of the ways of dealing with the challenges that I was given seemed about 10 steps ahead of the level of development that I was at. Sometimes literally, particularly in the sort of realm of non-religious exorcism work, space clearing on behalf of others as well as myself. and or healing of major difficulties, which were then, disabilities and things, which were then echoed by family members. And I was like, oh shit, I had enough of the time doing me. All these kinds of things. And yet, looking back on all of them, they were exactly what I needed for the next thing. And I don't mean the next crisis, I mean the next stage. I mean the next school. I need the sort of opening up of this channel. The next phase of my joy, even, in many of them, right? Certainly with a lot of the more recent medical stuff that I have mentioned on the channel, I wouldn't have a love life if it weren't for some of the stuff weirdly tied in with that and confirmed by it, and some of the breaks that I had from certain groups of people as a result of it, and ways that I came back to people, and all of which, I am rambling and I do apologise, but permit me to ramble to the extent that I say none of this is out of the realms of sorting it out. As I say, much of it is mental. When you look at how far you are from what it is that you wanted, I think you'll start to see why some of it has happened the way that it has, or why you've been held back in certain departments. And I dare say that for some of you, that's to do with a reshuffling of your value system around those things. I.e., do you want to heal this person because you want to benefit the highest good and your particular spirit community is encouraging you to, or do you want to look good, especially on the internet, or especially in front of that cute person you've had your eye on, or whatever? Not for all, but it's the sort of thing to think about, right? And many of my initial magical goals, and we're talking mid-90s if we're talking really initial, were kind of so I could flex a bit. And sort of getting to them at a much later stage and realising what those skills would really be for, if done honestly, and if done because there was no other way to do things once I was, fully embroiled in this way of living. That healed the need to just put it out there and show off about various things, It healed the ache of not being able to do those things because they happen quite naturally once my focus was on something that was more spiritually pertinent at the time. Everything does work out in the way that you initially manifested it. It's just that sometimes it's not even a right timing issue, because I hate that as well. I'm so angry with that. But it's sometimes that you have to do it in a different order to what you planned, because there's this bunch of other stuff that you couldn't even have dreamt of, couldn't even have wished for and anticipated, that's going to come in at different stages because you didn't do that bit yet, or because you moved it over here to when you travel to this place, or when you meet this dude, or whatever. To the final row. I'm sorry, that was a tangent, but I feel like it was, as well as me just rabbiting about my life, I feel like it was channeled info in the sense of you're going to do this, you're just going to do it in a weird order, and you need to think about why it is that you're so attached to the outcome of doing it in the order you had in your head. The next inner, we're releasing heartbreak, we're having a new start, possibly it's John Constantine, wicked, favourite card in the deck, one of my favourite graphic novels in a deck that is about graphic novels, so that's nice. And then with Queen of Pentacles in reverse, it's almost like, yes, you're going to receive this abundance stuff that you've been wanting. You're going to be in a stable enough place that you can practice without worrying about where the money's going to come from, or whether people stay in your life, or whatever stability is to you, right? Again, general. But I think it's almost like you're not even going to be asked about that by that point, because you're going to have gone through this process of, why am I really doing this? Why do I want to be a witch? Why do I want to be a spiritual person? Why do I need to be photographed on a yoga retreat? Why is it that I want to work with demons? Is it partly an edgelord thing? No shade. We've all done it. Why is it that I choose these specific deities and that I'm afraid of others? What childhood fears did I have? Something that's coming out to me as well is, if there was an animal or indeed like a semi-mythological archetypal thing that you were terrified of as a kid, it might actually be one of your patrons, totems, key figures now. The things that jump out to me, for example, are I work a lot with, I can't swim, but I work a lot with shark energy. And that started by being terrified of sharks when I was very tiny, and then growing to love them in my teens, just as I discovered witchcraft and grew to love that as well. Similarly with spiders, they've been a totem all my life. Still slightly scared of them, but that's more to do with stroke hallucinations than anything else. Same with watching Roald Dahl's The Witches at an age I probably shouldn't have, being absolutely shit scared of the Grand High Witch, hallucinating her through all of my hospitalisations as a kid, and then only realising as I hit adulthood that I'd been obsessed with crone energy that entire time, and I hadn't seen that actually, if you view her through that lens, she's fucking living and really cool. So it's, everything loops back on itself in an interesting way, and we've already discussed that, but I want you to look particularly at the things you were afraid of dabbling in, working with, encountering, fucking up, or indeed just seeing, because they will play into some of this. That's the message I'm getting with this Queen reversed as well. And that's a very John Constantine sentiment, right? I don't think there's anything he is afraid of. There's a lot of things that he wants to creep past or do a bit of trickery with, or maybe not involve himself with so directly. But I wouldn't say he's a man who feels real fear, other than kind of fear for other people's welfare or guilt or whatever. And that's why he's such an interesting, bombastic character. A lot of bolsh to him, because he doesn't really give a shit unless it hurts someone else. So that's something to meditate on if you're familiar with him. If you're not, it's fine. Some of the stuff that I'm saying is sparking off for you anyway. So coming into the manifestation and the outer of whatever these things are. If you were in a church or a lodge, and yes, I'm going to the end before the beginning, that might be a thing for you. If you were in some kind of ceremonial tradition, organised thing, even just like a progressive school, I'm not saying it won't continue, because for some of you, you're kind of locked into that, and that's a good thing. What I am saying is that the emphasis will come off that bit, I think, as you reconcile where you wanted to be with the path that you actually chose to go down. Because one may have seemed to lead to the other back when you started. And I think that as you're reflecting on things, that's not necessarily true anymore, right? To use the sparks out of the fingers analogy, because I keep going back to this hermetics metaphor, maybe you were starting off doing Franz Barden stuff very gradually and very systematically, and that's a wonderful thing to do. I absolutely love his literature, and have gone some way through it myself before realising that I needed to do other things. But it's almost like you're not getting the Last Airbender type results, even though you're working with the elements. So you're like, oh, I'm getting fucking frustrated with this. And actually, part of the reason that you needed to was to say, let's cool it off on the Barden for a while and also study this. And then maybe when we come back to it, we'll get the results we required, but perhaps not for the same reasons, in the way that I was discussing with the middle bit, right? It's like you're not switching allegiances, you're not changing paths, you're not working with different deities, different spirits. What you are doing is bringing yourself out of the structure imposed by other people and into a real examination of what your values are around this. Why did you start? Not an accusation, but if it feels like one, that's the area to look at, right? If you feel like the reasons for coming to some of this are a bit embarrassing, or if you're hearing messaging from like an early child person that it's all too impossible and how dare you think that you could achieve such and such, all of that is up for analysis right now. And that's why you found me today. And that's why my throat has lasted just long enough to get towards the end of this reading. So let's go. Carry on. Three of Pentacles is collaborative. If you've been a solitary practitioner, I think that's going to shift. Don't be afraid. I like you, are not the biggest one for coven work. It's not even that I don't play well with others. I feel like that's a cool, again, John thing to say. It's more like I have so many associative correspondences that it would be more complex to involve myself in a group and reliably kind of report back on the experiential stuff. So I tend to stay away from it, but I'm also not opposed to it, right? And I think you're maybe in a similar position if you've been solitary, where it's like, well, if I found the right people, sure. And I think you might be moving more into that energy of finding the right people as a result of checking in again with yourself as to what this was all about. And if you're already in a group or a lodge or something like that, I just think you're going to be working in a deeper way with them. And I'm getting for some of you, I don't know why, but this face looks Marian to me, even though I think it's possibly male. So there's like a Abrahamic influence coming in some way. Excuse me, hiccups confirmation. So, excuse me, if you're tradcrafty, this might be that you're going into biblical stuff, going into Psalms. If you're really anti-religion, it might be that some of this exploration is around what aspects of religious witches rub you up the wrong way and why. You might also be drawn to my Fallen Angel card reading in the Love Transmission section, if that's you. Or indeed the self-concept reading, because I think one of the freebie ones explored having a very religious upbringing and then returning to experiential spirituality. But there's something about that coming in anyway. There's something Abrahamic. I don't know whether it's like Judaic, Quran, biblical. It might be angel work, it might be demons. I don't know. But it'll mean something to you, right? And then with the 7 reversed, it's like, once you've done this bit of reflection, your reflection period is done and dusted, and you can absolutely just move forward and progress. And whether or not we're moving out of conformist or established or lodge-based work with the Hierophant reversed, I'm also reminded that the Hierophant upright is very he's doing the as above, so below hands, or, well, as above anyway. But that to me is not just hermetically represented, etc. It's also very Baphomet-y. It's very countercultural. It's being a conduit and a conductor in a magician card way for stuff that isn't necessarily what everybody else is doing, but is no less powerful for that. So I do think the momentum of your practice is going to really, you're going to need to buckle up and get on the coaster, and it's going to be even faster than, if if the chariot is horses, you're riding El Toro or something. There's a real roller coaster energy of no, seriously, strap in. It's going to move fast after this point. Again, I don't know whether it's in this particular manifestation of a result direction. Hopefully, a lot of it covers that because we've got the abundance. But I think it's just that you're going to kind of rock it into something else. The thing I'm getting now is Space Mountain. So again, coasters are coming up for some reason. Let me know. Maybe you live in a coaster city or something like that. I don't know. And then I wasn't going to pull a finalising card, but the Hermit's coming up. And there's a left-hand, right-hand path thing that always comes up for me with these hands. So it's check your allegiance as well, and why. For those of you on the left hand, is it because you felt you can't trust people, or perhaps you want to impress girls, or I don't know. This isn't a slating because I'm grey. I'm fully grey. I'm not left hand. I'm not right hand. I'm not light worker. Whatever. But yeah, maybe if it's left hand, there's a bit of edgelordiness coming in, which is a reactive response to something in your past. And maybe if it's fully right hand and you're a little bit afraid of being too tricky, or afraid of encountering any kind of spirit that is also tricky, or being seen as or being bad, we're not, FYI. But, maybe if there's an aversion to certain disciplines because of what they might contain, that is also something to examine within this process. And as we were saying, a lot of this stuff that will come up is fear-based. So particularly if you were taught certain concepts by a religion that is no longer yours, about what was safe to do with your own spirituality, with your own magic, indeed with your own prayer, or even lines of inquiry, what it was safe to read or experience, whether you feel safe listening to me right now, etc. That's something to put in a personal historical context. maybe even in a wider historical context, if we're talking religion. Either way, there is like a what is it that you have an aversion to and why. And I'm not advocating that everybody be bang in the middle, but I do think that exploring both extremes of any particular binary is useful if you want to claim that you're in the centre of it. And that's as much as I'll say on that topic. The Hermit also indicates, again, this splitting off from something established. So if you're on a course, if you're in a structure, if you were in a lodge-based system, again, there might be a period of retreat from that, or a bit of a pause on it, or just a lessening of those energies in order to focus on oneself. I don't know why I'm getting this, but for those of you who practice the LBRP and adjacent stuff, even if you step away from more ceremonial disciplines, keep doing that. I'm getting LBRP shit from this hand, so whatever. This is much more an occultist reading than it is a spirituality reading. I hope you'll forgive that, but this seems to be the direction I'm going with my channel, or with my own personal stuff anyway. Right, what do we want to do with these cards? Because these buggers have been waiting the entire time, haven't you? I'm so sorry. So an activity that will help with this, either at this reflective middle stage or kind of towards the end when you're speeding up. What is it that they can do that they can turn into a magical activity? This guy. Feeling grateful. I told you I wouldn't say it and then I did. I'm so sorry. Write down things that you're grateful for. Focus on these throughout the day to find motivation and feel gratitude. There is something to it. You know there is, as much as I take the piss. And I'm being drawn to Miss Caroline Mace's teachings on the different chakra systems and how the antidote to the kind of chakra stuff that deals with lack of self-esteem or indeed selfishness and gluttony and stuff, the spiritual solution for that is gratitude and regular gratitude practice. So that may do something for some of you. The other thing that I'm being called to say that I forgot to say with this bit, and it definitely was over here, is for anyone drawn to, I'm going to murder the pronunciation, Ho'oponopono? The Hawaiian one. I'll write it. I'm so sorry, guys. For anyone of that tradition, I do apologise. But the practice of, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, and meditating on those statements and looking through things with those statements in mind or repeated or even on like an affirmation track, and I can link a good one down below. That's going to be really helpful as well, particularly the thank you end. But I think there is some forgiveness in this because where there's fear, there's stuff to forgive. Okay. And I do want to, I want to just dip into the Maxfield Parish. I won't be long, I promise. My throat will cut out anyway, so I can't be long. It's not a chakra block, guys. It's silly behaviour on my part, which was altogether positive. But anyway, I think I have a throat infection coming on, is what I'm trying to say. This guy. And last, but definitely not least. Or are you last? Yeah, you want to come out and all, do you? Fine. But you're not related to the others. Right. Right, get it. This is spirit guide stuff up here. So if you don't believe in spirit guides, you can just cut out after these three are done. But then again, if you don't believe in spirit guides, I'm not sure why you're here, really. Take it for an a thought experiment walk. That's what I want to say. Trying to get my atheists into experiential content. Like a bad man. Anyway. You mean even atheism is experiential? Always has been. Right. Sorry. I get really bitchy about trad stuff sometimes. 6 of Wands reversed, 6 of Swords reversed, 7 of Pentacles reversed. That's a lot of reversals, my dudes. There's something here about going backwards. Some of you make audio sigils in a backwards fashion. I do too. It's a Twin Peaks thing. It works every time. Something I'm being pulled to say is if you want to write a song forwards, record it, sing it to yourself backwards, learn that by rote, as in the nonsense words, yes, and then sing it backwards in the presence of others, they will hear it forwards, or indeed your environment will. The amount of times I did that when I worked in a more public setting with stark results is fucking funny to me, my dudes. So yeah, usually I put something like, here is my backwards song, it is about such and such, because every time I sing it, such and such happens, and I dedicate it to this spirit, and I include this thing, and blah, blah, blah. And you can do it as lyrically, fancy as you want to do, and pick a melody that is not canned music, as the fairies would say, but is just kind of off the top of your head. Record it, sing it very fluidly, play it back, flip it in an app, right? And then learn that version, sing it whenever you fancy, or indeed hum it and sing the nonsense words in your head. It will have the same effect if you vibrate it as you would with a statement in the LBRP, as if you're singing it out loud. So that's your first practitioner tip. Let's get into the imagery and the actual meaning, shall we? Sorry, 2 seconds. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, you bloody lovely things. Right. We've got a Where the Wild Things Are reference. And we've got another banishing by laughter technique. There's nothing coming through herbs or crystal wise. But if you do feel called to obsidian or amethyst, come on, brain. Please do work with those. Equally, parlour palm and Althea. What are you? You're a peace lily. Thanks. Right. Yeah, again, there may be plant families around those things. Some of them toxic to cats, by the way. Just need to say that. But yeah, you do you with those things. This is telling me that when things are bad, you see this person's got like, they're sort of grasping their head like, oh me, oh my, I me, alas, alack, right? I want you to do that. I want you to be really demonstrative. The next time you're worried as shit about the fact that, you know, your results-based stuff isn't very resultsy right now, or indeed that you're just not in the place in life that you thought you'd be, I want you to physically bring your arms up to your head, if you're able, and grab your face and go, oh, what in the world? How could I possibly survive in this voice now that such and such has happened and I am unable to blah? And really ham it up, right? I want you to be the focus of the party. I want you to embarrass your family members. Really go ham with the attention on this until you make yourself laugh at how bloody drama llama you're being about the whole thing. And that will help dissolve the pressure around it, right? So that's your banishing by laughter thing. Other techniques also apply. Banishing by laughter is great in many contexts. And then these two together, they want to talk about where the wild things are in the sense of, damn, am I going to have to get the book? I am, aren't I? Because not everyone's read it. All right. 2 seconds while I adjust my... I'll be back. God, this reading's a lot longer than I thought it'd be. I'm sorry. Where are you? Oh, come on. Where are you? Oh, that's the jelly bean queen. There we go. For those of you unfamiliar with this, I apologise that you didn't have a childhood, but this is Where the Wild Things Are by Maurice Sendak. I believe that's how it's said. It chronicles Max, a magician here. And he... Sorry, this is getting very chaos on you, isn't it? He gets sent to bed without any supper. We've all been there. And through his magical projection on the outer world, a forest begins to grow in his room, right? And then through that forest, you know, a moon appears, etc., etc. I'm not going to read you the whole book because this isn't bloody story time. Although if you want me to read Where the Wild Things Are as part of the channel, comment down below and I absolutely will. I'd love that. Just as a chaos magic activity. Okay, so he sails away for a year and a day, right? Or through night and day, sorry. I'm sure it was, yeah, it is. It's a year. In and out of weeks and almost over a year. That might be relevant. To the land where the wild things are. Wild things to me as a kid were always just spirits. Like by the time I was having this read to me, I was already meeting all kinds of stuff, right? So I'm sorry if I've just lost the atheists who think that I'm schizophrenic or something. But yeah, it's sort of analogous, I think, for recreating your home environment after what you perceive as an adversity, the mom and the food, right? Sent to bed without any supper. And then through that recreation of environment, we start to come into spirit contact with these lovely motherfuckers. So the sailing away for a year and a day bit and the land where the wild things are these two cards separately. And there are other demonstrations of Max's magical power, such as be still, and he tames them with the magic trick, which is just that these spirits are kind of so stunned that this little kid is ordering them about that they sort of do what he wants. And then, you know, spoilers, but they all become friends, have a big party in the woods. And it's a great book, and he comes back, and he comes home to have his tea, and it's still hot, right? So the whole problem was busted by the fact that he became a magician. The reason that I say this is because I think that something that might be useful to you, especially those of you who are into vision magic, visualization, manifestation using the SATS method, you Neville Goddard in general actually, or anything sort of to do with those imaginal skills. If you are sent to bed without your supper in some form, I want you to make a woodland grow in your room. Yes, for real. And I want you to imagine yourself going off in a boat to some kind of land where spirit contact could happen. It will come to you as you go there. I don't want to put in your head like, imagine yourself in a beautiful meadow, imagine yourself in a woodland, imagine yourself on the savannah. You know, it like, if I give you a prescription of something to do with this, it's not going to be right for you. I want you to just take your boat to wherever it fucking goes, and I want you to be open to that being different to what you think it might be, right? Because openness is another thing here. And then when you're there, I want you to communicate with whatever archetypes, entities, spirits, animals, flowers, anything that you see to be there. And that will bring back important information about why it is that you had to go to bed without your supper. Excuse me, confirmation again. And indeed, excuse me, come on. And indeed, you may return to your room and your supper may be still hot, right? In the metaphorical sense. But this is kind of semi-metaphorical, semi-astral. I hope I haven't lost everybody with this reading. It's probably the most woo that I've gone. But you know what? Feels good, man. I don't even care. Right. Gonna lose some of you here. Spirit guide message directly. This is your guides, not my guides. My guides are funny, but they weren't quite so prompt with the cards. Three of Swords in reverse again, so we're letting go of the heartbreak of this again. And the King of Cups in reverse, so we're talking about not trying to manage your emotions so much that you don't fucking have any, son. Not trying to be so on top of things, again, in this Emperor energy, that you're kind of negating a whole ocean of meaning right below you. For some of you, working with the colour blue is going to be really influential. And I mean that like super bright, vivid Derek Jarman pure blue, right? There are many shades. If you need the shade that I'm on about, YouTube Derek Jarman blue, right? You may even enjoy the film. But that colour is going to be super useful. And if you're coming to this after upload, like maybe even a couple of months after, and I've gone through my spectral readings, the blue one is for you. There is a pile there for you. I don't know what it is yet. I haven't made it, but it's there. Look at us reaching through time, right? So the guidance from the guides, let's flip these for a sec just so I can take this in. That's interesting. This is a little bit like John Waterhouse and the nymphs, isn't it? So for some of you, you're doing elemental stuff, and it's to keep doing that. And if you're not already working with fae or nymphs or anything sort of along those lines, I want to say, I'm talking to two very different groups of people here. For some of you, you're not really doing like magic, or you're just dipping your toe in maybe sort of early pagan waters and you're not really sure of yourself with it yet. And for those people, I would say immerse yourself in mermaid stuff. There's actually going to be one of the predicted fashion trends for this year is like mermaid core because of all the movies that are out and stuff. Do that, right? Go ham with it. And then for those of you who are used to more sort of elemental or spirit contact, spirit work, etc., look into the folklore around you or around your point of origin genetically to do with watery spirits and how they interact with the problem that you've been having. They don't need to be good watery spirits. I'm aware, particularly in my neck of the woods, that a lot of the things associated with water are predatory and scary. But again, we were talking about fears earlier, weren't we? So if you know that, like, the thing that's coming in my head is like Jenny Green Teeth, for those of you who know. But if you had a fear of something like that as a kid, that is where some of the key to unlocking this is going to be as well. And that is from your spirit guides. They may also be watery in nature, and that might just be a confirmation for you. So if you've got somebody who is a bit aquatic, for me it's Godzilla. For you it might be something mermaidy, or just like you might be working with the messages in water, literature and studies and all that sort of stuff. Whatever it is, there's confirmation about your guides being watery here. Or wanting to work with water. That's the other thing is, have you been doing blessing water before you drink it? Putting words of affirmation under your glass of water, doing things with putting energy into water and then releasing it back into a natural body of water, like a lake, a river, a stream. I'm not going to list natural bodies of water. I don't know why I'm doing that. But again, it's similar to this Where the Wild Things Are. But this is very Neptunian and imaginal and dream based, whereas this is like, no, literally work with water. And if this is all getting a bit heavy for you, it could be as simple as like having a shower made of light and cleansing yourself in the shower, or like putting salt into the soap that you use to wash your hands, as in like cleansing salt, black salt, etc. Which is weird with it being a swords card, isn't it? But it's... Oh, okay. Hold up. For some of you, it's the Little Mermaid, because Spirits of the Air, right? The Hans Christian Andersen version that doesn't end quite as merrily as the Disneyfied version is, as far as I know, based on an older tale, and the Spirits of the Air feature quite heavily, and indeed our favourite mermaid kind of makes the decision to become part of a community with her Sisters of the Air. So transition from watery energies to air energies may be relevant here, if not mermaids. And that might be an astrological thing as well. I'm just relaying it as I see them. I don't know. You let me know in the comments. And then we've got, I think this is from, I want to say it's from The Emperor's New Clothes, but I'm not 100% sure. But there is a thing that I've already had about this on this channel, which is to do with, it was in the same room, but it wasn't the same card. Sorry, it was like a Too Many Cooks thing. And I can also see that this guy is blinded by the kit he's wearing. For those of you who do resonate with chaos magic, or like magical culture that is a bit more grey or indeed left-handed, look at the early influences on your practice in terms of that, because I'm seeing... This is so specific. I'm seeing the glasses that what's-his-face wears in The Invisibles, which is grand, but there's something about the influence of literature around that movement within magic that has given you a presumption at the beginning of your practice in a certain area. And it's time to let go of that now and keep all of the rad sort of oomph of the Grant Morrison type worldview, but also alter it for what it is that you're ready to move into. I know that's really specific, it won't be for all of you, but this is what I'm getting. And it's echoed again by the fact that we've got a checkerboard floor, so we're incorporating left and right, we're incorporating black and white, we're kind of muddying things up from where our value systems used to be and how concrete they used to be. And actually we're being more strategic with that, because the other thing with that is a chessboard, right? And the King of Cups is Yes, he's a feeling king. He's very Cancer, Aquarius, Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces. Sorry, it's late. But he's also quite methodical in a way that other Cups figures are not. So it may be that you've made a transition from working emotively, intuitively, maybe even like medical intuition type stuff, into being much more strategic or structured about how it is that you operate, and taking the influences from your past but putting them into a more systematic present will be very good for you, as long as you do it under your own system and not someone else's. I think that's a wrap, because I've talked for a very long time and I intended this to be maybe 15, 20 minutes. But I mean, I hope it's because you needed it, and like, I hope it's because it was helpful. But please do let me know what your spiritual background is, what you pulled from this. If bits of it didn't work for you, that's fine, it's very general. But I would like to think some of it did, so do feedback. And if you want to see more kind of collective stuff specifically focused on magic or the spiritual, I would bloody love to do that. So let me know down below and subscribe if that's an area of interest to you. There is a temptation with so many tarot channels to do almost exclusively love readings, because that's what pulls people in. And my guidance lately is to like have a regular love slot, in order that everything else that I focus on can be kind of not necessarily to do with that, because I don't think love is my main job, or at least not with tarot. I don't know whether it will be with astrology, but we'll see. But yeah, long and short of it is, I like doing this. If you like seeing it, the way to see more of it is to let me know, because if it's not popular and nobody lets me know, I'll just stop doing it. I could do this all day. All right, catch you later, gang. Take care.